Overall, intellectually gifted students tend to develop very poor study habits and study skills. And this is because they have not really had any kind of learning or any kind of challenge to them. Because of that, things come very easily to them. And with that ease comes a lack of development for those study skills and the study habit. Issues associated with gifted students in regards to study habits or study skills is that a gifted student tends to avoid or not submit homework at all. They will put forth very minimal effort sometimes. They tend to be disorganized. Sometimes they don't even pay attention in class. They may even have behavioral issues. One major issue for intellectually gifted students is that they simply avoid or they don't submit their homework. And this is not to be seen as a refusal. It's not arrogance. It's not passive aggressiveness. It's not even an oppositional behavior. It's simply that the lessons are not relevant to the child. They're not meaningful to the student. And because of that, the student really feels that there's no purpose to it. They need to have a purpose, and they need to have a purpose beyond just a grade. They don't care that they've finished something. Instead, they want to show that they have mastered something. We're especially going to see this when we look at math problems. Typically, a gifted student is going to be required by a math teacher to show the steps and the details within a math problem. And the student is going to think, I don't understand this. Why? It doesn't matter. And they will refuse to do so, or they simply won't do the homework. So what we need to do instead is to really give them information, assignments, and materials which are going to challenge them, which are going to make them excited. One way to think about this is, if you can imagine, if you were Thomas Edison and somebody wanted to show how to do basic math problems, he'd be very frustrated, and this is how the gifted student feels. Another issue that goes along with not submitting their work or not completing it is completing it but with very minimal work. So I'll give you an example. A student of mine, a senior in high school, was assigned to write a paper, and instead of writing a paper, he wrote 3 or 4 sentences, done, submitted it. He wrote a paper. Very minimal work, but a very intelligent young man. So what he needs instead is guidance. This is what the rubric is. This is what entails minimal work, and this is what entails successful, excellent work. We want to make sure, again, that they are challenged, and we want to make sure that they understand the overall goals of the assignment. Another idea for minimal work is you'll see sometimes some plagiarism. Why? Because there's no higher critical thinking skills going into something, so instead they'll tend to copy and paste from a source. This is not a matter of stealing or cheating, simply that they're trying to accomplish it, be done, and put the minimal amount of work into it so they can move on to something that is more motivating and exciting. So another option to do is to have the student participate in the planning project. Help them to do a student-centered approach where they're creating their own curriculum and looking at what they really want to learn within the same topic or subject matter. Next, disorganization. So everybody kind of handles organization in different ways. However, really highly intelligent people seem to be more disorganized, but they really do know where everything is, and they can find anything at any times because they've developed their own way of organizing things, and they have their own way of categorizing things. The only time to really jump in there and to interrupt the process would be if they can't find things. When they've gotten to the point that things are completely out of control, they might need a little bit of help and a little bit of guidance on how to handle things. We want to look at also how they do not pay attention in class. They simply are frustrating sometimes. And this is because they're distracted, and they become very distracted when they are, well, when things are too much. An example, a student, sophomore, math class. She says, I keep missing out on assignments that are due and I don't get it. Well, what happened is it's not that the assignment is due and that she has missed out on the assignment. It's because plain and simply she was not paying attention to class. The information that was being covered, she already knew. And because she already knew it, she had already done the homework or done the assignment and then didn't know when to submit it or where to submit it or the details because she was already focusing on something else that was more challenging. We really want to look at this and see how we can really help them and help the student to really be able to participate participate in the learning project. And one of the greatest ways to help them for not paying attention is make sure that you incorporate all of the learning personalities. Make sure that you get the visual, the auditory. You want to make sure the kinesthetic is in there, as well as reading and writing. We also want to make sure that you're looking at how you can create assignments or information or dedicate information that is really going to intrigue that learner. We also have behavioral issues, and this may seem silly. However, there are some times where the student is so distracted that they're scribbling on the edges of the paper. One of my students at one point had made a very detailed origami dragon out of his homework. Why? Bored, simply bored. And these are really indicators of boredom. So instead of punishing a child or disciplining a child for some behavioral issues relating to their study habits, we want to give them the tools in order to really help them to overcome these. Each of these issues relate to homework and to study skills and also to study habits. And we don't want to say that we have a student here who is non-compliant or is simply confrontational. Instead, let's look at some of these issues and figure out how we can meet the needs of the student. What can we do to help the student to be a more effective learner and to give them the tools they need to build and to develop the characteristics and attributes of lifelong learning?